Unfortunately, for last 2 weeks, I don't have opportunity to read the book because I sick. But I would like to join to the board cycle today to hear another opinions and give my opinion also.
Absolutely. Yes. So let's begin then with the part of comments because um, I I believe with every single group here we have had that discussion at some point, or at least I have mentioned it. Um, for the group that already graduated, I for sure have that discussion, but the new ones I don't remember. But here's the thing. Um, there were two chapters on comments, and I can relate more to the second one, the one that says comment only what the code cannot say. I if there are these two philosophies of these two different authors, that's the one I will be supporting. And that's what I actually encourage you to do. So basically, I like the last sentence. You do not comment what the code can, sorry, you comment what the code cannot say, not simply what it doesn't say. So a lot of students, they think that comments is the solution
Habits.
to bad naming. Their code is super complex because they use bad variable naming or bad function naming or bad class naming. And their solution is not to refactor, but to start writing a story that they think I'm going to be reading. I'm not going to be reading none of that. You see, what you need to do is you need to use appropriate variable names, appropriate function names, appropriate class names. But yes, there are going to be moments in which you have to write a comment for certain things because you cannot express it via code. So, an example yesterday, um, I'm working on a project and there's configuration values that you just need to put. And depending on what you want to run, it's a configuration file. It's not even code per se. And those are values that I always forget because I'm not changing them all the time. I needed to put a comment because otherwise trying to find out what are the available options is just a pain. And you don't write this in code. This is not Kotlin. This is not nothing like that. This is a plain JSON file that with bunch of configurations. So in something like that, I have two options. Either I don't put a comment, and every time I need to change those values, I need to look it up and do the reading, or I just put a comment in which I say the available values are A, B, C, and D, as an example. And next time I need to make that change, I know what are my options. I could also sometimes, for example, could be in the Gradle, as all of you know about Gradle, and I might need to put a specific version. But let's say that it's not the latest version, but there is a very specific reason why I need that version there. It could be because, for example, um, there's a bug in the newer version, or because I'm waiting for something and I do not want either someone else or myself to change that version because the newer version is just not working. I need to put a comment. I cannot express that in code. So I put a comment saying, look, this is the version that we need to use and do not change it until this thing here has been fixed. Because without that, how do I know? How am I supposed to express that in code, for example? But trying to create a bunch of functions that have terrible names and complementing that with the comments, that is not the approach. Any thoughts on that? I want to hear from all of you. All of you here have been writing code for a while now. What are your thoughts on that?
I I do like the new approach. The less comments, the best. That forces you to be concise in your code and make your code more readable in ways that in code basically. Better names, better structure, better indentation. But I kind of understand where it comes from, this like whole philosophy of like, oh, you have to comment every single function, every single line. Because for example, on the first one, it says like, oh no, we got two basic coding sheets. Basic. When you think basic, then if you write like a piece of code on basic, you might need to put some comments on it, because for a non-programmer or a person new to programming that's new to the code, might get a bit complex when reading just basic code. But nowadays we have Kotlin, for example, which is super concise. It reads like a book, like you say, and we have a bunch of new languages that are newer, therefore they are more easier to read. So I think that's the shift that happened at some point in programming. So I rarely comment on my code, and I prefer it that way, because unless it's something like, oh, I don't understand this behavior, and then I need to remind myself like, hey, this function, I wrote it this way, I don't understand what happened behind, but this is what happened, but I put it this way. So those are the only conditions that I have for commenting.
Andre, what about you?
I think the important tip is trying to write the name, the express intent of the function. But in my case, I have something is easy logic, but when you write the code, I write the name, just any name, and after I write the code, and when I'm trying to decide the name of the function is express intent, and when I see the name is too long, the problem is not the name, the problem is my function, because I use many behaviors in one function, so I need to see again, and this is a good opportunity to refactor, because I believe the best way is the intent, but the name, the function, they be too short name. Sometimes I see long names like function, blah, 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 blah. I think it's not good. It's not good naming for the functions.
Yeah, sometimes having difficulties finding a name, I mean, could be two things. One, well, it's just it could be a bit difficult to come up with good names. That's just not a secret. But it could also be that your function is doing, as you expressed, is doing too much, and because it's doing too much, you're finding it difficult to yeah, to come up with a good name. That is correct. Exactly. So again, instead of compensating for poor method or class name, rename them. So get that into habit. And remember, at the end of the day, it is code what is executed, not comments. So you want to make sure that if those two are there and they deviate, which usually they do, it is the code that it's at least saying the truth, because that's the one that is being executed. And believe me, if maintaining code is a headache, imagine having to maintain code and comments. You will not do it. You will eventually get stressed, lazy, whatever, and you are not going to comment the code or update the comments. Sorry. And yeah, and that's how they start to deviate. And then at the end, you have a chaos, and everyone then starts ignoring the comments at all, which is what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Good. Let's continue.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what difference between the header comment and the inline comment?
Where did you read that? In the first one?
Yeah, in the first one, it says there. So
what page? To get more context.
Yeah, the page is 33.
I would imagine what he meant by inline comments is that you have imagine you have a function, okay? And you have, if I understand correctly, the header comment will be kind of commenting the function name of what in general the function does.
Okay.
And inside the body of the function, you have a bunch of lines, and then in there you comment out what specific lines might be doing. Is what I understood, at least.
Okay.
Unless there's some other vocabulary for the basic programming language. I don't know. Good. So continuous learning. This is very, very, very important, especially for the people who graduated, because you graduated now, okay? You are not, you're not in a formal education at the moment. And like anything in life, if you don't use it, you lose it. Meaning if you don't practice, you will eventually forget the things you learned. So you need to practice. You need to continue learning. And the beauty of our field is that it's always advancing. It's always moving forward. There's always new things. And that beauty comes at a cost. and it's a headache because you have to be constantly staying up to date with all the available new things. Yesterday was Java, today is Kotlin. Yesterday is XML, today is Compose. Yesterday was version blah 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 of Android, now it's version blah 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 of Android. Before was Python, I don't know, 2 point something, now it's 3 point blah blah blah. Things like that. You always have to be updated with the new changes, the new features, what was added, what was removed, and things like that. And if you don't do that, you will very quickly become obsolete. And there are many ways of preventing that from happening. And one of them is exactly what we're doing at the moment, a book circle and reading books. Hopefully, especially for those who already graduated, hopefully after attending the book circle, you got then into the habit of reading. And I don't mean reading Harry Potter, that's perfectly fine, but at least reading programming books so that you can stay up to date with your knowledge and complement on your knowledge as well. The second one, books is very important. The second one, you need to continue programming. If you, for example, you know what's the best way I learned all that stuff, all the different things I have learned? I created a project. I wanted to learn iOS. Let me create an app. I wanted to learn about coroutines. Let me create an app. I want to learn about Jetpack Compose. Let me create an app. Every single one of you have ideas. Every single one of you, things that you wish you had. Hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a program that does this for me? Hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a Python program as an example that analyzes my transactions, or an app that gets information from whatever? Well, create it and use it as a platform for learning. You see, that is the best way of learning. And unfortunately, you have no choice. If you want to stay up to date, you need to do those things. You want to explore a little bit of AI or a little bit of augmented reality, create an app. It doesn't have to be now you're going to change the world with your app. No, it's just a demo app that you use as a context for learning. And even if it has only one screen, if it only has one file, trust me, you're going to be learning a lot, but you have to do it. It's a habit. You have to do it in your free time, of course, but that's the only way of staying up to date with everything that is happening. And I do it all the time. Nowadays, I put it in the context of the education. So the auto grading, the plugin, the LMS, all of those things began as experiments, began as things that I wanted to learn. And I use them as a context for practicing stuff. You see, find whatever it is that you're interested. It doesn't matter what that is, board games, coffee, whatever. Just find something that you find interesting, use it as a medium to learn. Because if you're not interested in the project, you're not going to do it. So all of you have ideas, all of you have problems, all of you have solutions or ideas to solve those problems. Start writing code. Who does that, by the way? Anyone?
I've done like maybe 5 following apps in Compose, kind of a thing, following the
Well,
course.
if you're in the education, I mean, at the very least, do the stuff. You have a lot. But if you're not in the education, that is more important, because if you're in the education, I'd rather you focus on the education. But once you're done with the education projects, then of course you do need to find stuff to do, especially if you graduated. Andre, go ahead.
I think for my case in the moment, the good part also to learn is when you have the all projects and you testing the different scenarios, you testing the your apps in another device, you get more problems, and also you try to refactor your code.
Of course.
I think it's in my case now I have this problem with the project I did in the internship. For one reason, they don't work with my phone. My phone is a little old. I spent like 2 or 3 days to trying to find the problem, fix the problem. Unfortunately, I fixed it. So I think we learn a lot when we try to improve the old projects also.
Exactly. That is also a good learning opportunity. You have existing projects, you improve them, you add new features. That it's part of that. It's part of that learning, staying up to date and applying things. Good. Here he expressed go to conferences. This one can be a little bit more expensive because usually these conferences tend to be, yes, in Europe, in the US as well, but it involves going to another country unless they are in Gothenburg, which they don't happen that often. Um, Going to another country and a lot of stuff. But that doesn't mean you cannot go to meetups, for example. There's a lot of meetups in Gothenburg area where you can meet other people in IT, Android, Python, and they usually have how do you call this, presentations. You can learn new things and of course network in the process. You just have to go to meetup.com and find different. By the way, I have a meetup group for Android. We haven't done an event in a long time, but we have a couple of, I think, I want to say a couple of thousand people, something like that, or 300 people. I don't remember, but I did an event prior Corona. Haven't updated it. But anyways, you find many of those. You have many of those. Mentors, speaking to people. That is also a very important way of learning. And sometimes, as he said, you can use a virtual mentor. There's, for example, all of you have been reading books. Yeah? These books are written by very knowledgeable people. Follow those people. LinkedIn, look at what other books these people have. Look at what other resources. Maybe they have a blog. Maybe they have Twitter or now called X, and you can follow to see what they say. I don't do that much. That part I prefer to read. I rather, if let's say I like the author, I like this book, I say let me see what other books this author have or other book he has, yeah, and then I will buy other books from that person. I prefer books rather than blogging. But if you are more into blogging, so be it. It doesn't matter. The point is, you need to follow what they do. And my favorite open source code, I use that a lot. I find an app that I like it, or like I like certain behaviors, and I say, if the app is open source, I look for it and I see, let me see how in the world they implemented this stuff. The same thing for Python scripts or things like that. I'm like, how are they making this? Is this even open source? If it is, then let me look for the source code and let me read it a little bit to see what's going on there and what I can learn. Again, I don't have to understand the entire app. People think that you have to do some grandiose. No, it's as easy as let me just look for this file and let me see what in the world is happening here. That simple. Then you run it locally, you test a little bit, you delete stuff, you move stuff, you change stuff, and before you know it, you can implement it yourself, or at the very least, adapt it for what you need. But those are different ways of learning. What other approaches? What else do you guys do for learning? What do you guys do for learning?
Lot of YouTube videos.
Mm.
Lots of YouTube videos.
That is good up to a point, because I would say if you only watch a video, that is more passive learning. You might understand it, but you don't fully digest it. If you take action on those videos, then perfect. That's correct. That's the correct approach. If you just watch it for watching it, yeah, probably you will have, but it's the same when you watch my videos. If you just watch them and don't do anything, trust me, by the time you need to write the code, you wouldn't have no idea how to do it. So, but yeah, YouTube is definitely a very good resource. Andre?
One important thing when we saw videos in YouTube is check the date. It's very important because sometimes we see YouTube and we write, okay, how to, for example, open the camera with Android. And we see, oh, we have a lot of videos, but when you check the date, it's for 3 years ago. So maybe
And that is recent, because I have seen videos like 8 years ago, and and it's terrible.
yeah, and maybe it's old approach, so maybe they have a new approach. So I believe the first step is maybe check first in documentation and developer Andre first,
Mm.
and in that
And
case read it. Yeah.
exactly. One thing about YouTube videos, like Of course, everything is preference. You have your own preferences. I have my own preferences, and whatever works for you, then you should go for that. Um, Nowadays, I don't watch videos. Whenever I have a problem, let's use the example that Andres said, the camera. Let's say I need to implement the camera, and let's say that I totally forgot how to implement the camera, or I have never implemented a camera. I wouldn't watch a video because nowadays, after doing that so many, I did that earlier, like yeah, in the beginning. And the problem in to me, to my way of learning, the problem is that I have to spend 20 minutes, 10 minutes, if they are nice, watching a video that could have been explained in 1 minute. And they go with all this blah 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 blah. Hey, shut up! Just show me the code. Like you know what I mean? Like you reach a stage in which you
Yes.
don't need blah blah blah. You just need give me the code. I will understand it by myself, and I do what I need to do. You see? So that is why nowadays I very rarely watch videos. You, Andre, you said that your filter parameter was how old it was. My filter parameter is how long it is. If the video is not less than 2 minutes, I don't watch it because I know it's a bunch of blah blah blah. I rather go to an article or a post or whatever, and I just look directly to where is the code, and I see what I need to see, and I do what I need to do. Usually, if I need to do a video, will be more if the art if I don't find any article whatsoever. If I'm like deep in the ground and I no article in the world is helping me, then okay, let's see what the videos have to offer. And I put it like 2x in speed to make sure I get what I want. But yeah, videos don't work for me anymore. I use it as my last resource. But again, that's me. That's me. Andre, go ahead.
Yes, this is true. Sometimes when I start the videos and they start the blah blah blah, I say, okay, I don't like it. Change another one. Or sometimes I like is people put in YouTube and they say, okay, I have the code in my description or the link for the code. I like it because I go direct to that. Let me read your code, and if I understand, I see the video. But if sometimes it's good to that one.
Exactly. But again, I guess that depends also a lot on the stages because when I was, let's say, new, I did want the blah, blah, blah. I needed the blah, blah, blah to better understand. But as you progress, yeah, you don't need the blah, blah, blah anymore. And the same for Python. Like when I'm using a library, Matplotlib or whatever it is, don't give me blah, blah, blah. Just let me show me the code. Just show me the code and I do the rest. If I need the blah, 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 I'll look for it. But yes, that is my opinion about those things. When I was doing the videos for all of you, the Python, the Android, the Kotlin, all this, um, it was difficult in the balance because I need to give enough blah 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 for people to understand since they have never seen any of that before, but not that much blah 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 that they will, yeah, not do it. I think I gave enough blah blah blah, not too little, not too much. Um, you, by the way, I don't know if you know, but you can speed up the videos a little bit if you think that I'm speaking a little bit slow. Actually, I watch all of the videos before publishing them, and I need to put them on 1.5. But that's me, okay? Because I realize, oh man, I speak too slowly here. So I do need to put them on 1.5. But again, probably for you, the dot one or 1.0 can be enough. But yeah, that's me. Good. So, will you all be implementing all of this? Will all of you be doing the recommendations in this chapter? Is that a yes or is that a no? To make
Yeah.
sure to stay up to date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another
Good.
good point on the continuous learning is like a good way to learn something is to teach or speak about it.
Oh yes, exactly.
It
That's
happens
very
to
good.
me a lot nowadays when someone asks me a question and then I just like sit down and spend 5, 10, 15 minutes just explaining the thing. And then at the end of the conversation, I'm like, oh, I quite understand this now. But because I remember when I was on that problem. So, and then like all this time after, oh yeah, I kind of got I realized that I have now a better understanding of the problem. So I can explain it in a kind of good way. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is correct. There's there's a saying that if you cannot explain it, you do not understand it. Or even better, if you do not explain it in a simple manner, maybe you do not actually understand it. And that is actually very true, because given what I do, I have to really be able to explain things well, or the best possible. And to do that, I need to begin by understanding it myself and learning it myself. So of course, teaching, not only it's not a one direction thing. I have been learning as well myself in this process, because if I don't master it or dominate it myself, how am I supposed to help others understand it? So that is very, very true. And you can do that by working together, for example. That is very true. Good. We have 3 minutes. Let's see. Let's speak a little bit about the convenience is not an ility. Who understood this chapter? Any thoughts? Page 38.
It was about this thing that we have to try to, if I'm doing a function that is supposed to do something, and then at some point later in the development, I've found myself in a situation where I need a function that is like, let's say 90% similar to that function. He proposes that instead of like combining the two functions into one, like make it so there's two functions with different namings, with different intents, with a proper intent, because even though it's easier for me, the one who implemented, to say, no, I can just put this together into this function, it will be better for the one who uses the function if I have two separate well-named functions. And at the end of the chapter, he says something like, make up your room, be quiet, and do your homework in one name. But it will be better to have make up your room, be quiet, and don't turn your thing.
So this chapter is actually a little bit more complex than what it seems, actually. And it could be confusing for multiple reasons. One is they use the word API. And all of you here are familiar with API. So probably when you read this chapter, you thought about what we spoke in class about APIs, like connecting to the internet and retrieving data from the internet. But an API, or application programming interface, it's more than just that. It's a, let's put it like this. A function, for example, or a class has an interface, the function name, the parameters, the return type. Question to the audience. Let's say that I have a function that is used in 100 different places, and I need to refactor the body of the function. Will any of the 100 places be affected? I only change the body, okay? I only change the body of the function. Would I need to update anywhere else?
Yes, the interface.
No. I only changed the body of the function. So I didn't change anything else, just the body. I didn't change the name. I didn't change the return type. I didn't change the parameters. Do I need to change in the other 100 places?
No.
No,
assuming that the behavior is the same, yes, no.
No. Listen, I only changed the body. Everything else remained the same. I don't have to change anything. Now, if I decide that now that function needs to have 3 parameters, where do I need to change? And the 3 are mandatory. Where do I need to change?
You have
exactly.
To
in that scenario, you do need to change everywhere. Why? Because you have changed the interface. If you nowadays, if you do a rename, actually that's a bit easier, because there are the refactoring tools that can do that for you. But if you do change the return type, if you do change the number of parameters or things like that, yeah, it's going to propagate everywhere. And that is part of the philosophy you need to keep in mind. And as a result, then whenever you create this interfaces, APIs, functions, classes, all this stuff, you need to be thoughtful about how you're going to build these things. And then the example that he's giving is the one of the functions. Yeah, maybe I could write one function that do all this stuff, but maybe that is not the best approach. Maybe it's easier to separate these 2 functions and create 2 separate interfaces, as an example. That is what you need to keep in mind. Creating interfaces, functions, and all that, it's very, very difficult. You're looking at it one day, you think it's very good. You come the next day, you realize this was not good. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that, yeah,
And this the quality of the application that produce for the company.
exactly, that is correct. So here I like this statement. He said, a single large method could certainly be more convenient to write than a well thought out set of operations. But would it be easier to use? Yes, exactly. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to keep that in mind. Oh, we're done actually. So deploy early and often. I only want to say one thing about that. Actually, no, I'd rather not. Yeah, let's give it up to here, actually. Let's give it up to here. I think we had a very healthy discussion with the other topics. No need to add more extra stuff. Thank you everyone for today. Hopefully, 2 things you get out of this. You have to continue. Learning is a process. Learning is a journey.
Yeah.
You never stop learning. Never. The day you stop learning, you become obsolete. Okay? Not only in IT, but in any other field. You have to get into the habit of learning, continuously learning. And the second, make sure that your solution to good, understandable code is not comments. It's refactor, good variable, good function naming.
Yeah.
So with that said, everyone, thank you for today, and I will see you next week.
Thank you.
Umberto,
Yes, thank you. Bye.
just I will not be able to join you next week because I will have a training day at work that will
Oh.
end with an exam for
It's
renewing
okay.
my tram driver license. So
It's okay. No worries. You can
So-
watch the recording afterwards.
I will do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck with the
Goodbye.
test.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
bye.